But I'm extremely grateful, first of all, to all of you, because the fact that you're all here really shows that we are a community, that people care. Despite the fact that we don't do it regularly, Elijah occupies a special place in everyone's heart, or at least I do occupy a special place in everyone's heart, that we are here in order to share and to be together. And it's a great blessing. So thank you to all of you for showing your friendship and commitment. Thank you to all of you for showing, ultimately by being here, that Elijah does provide something to all of you that is different from many Zooms that you all take part in. Life has moved to Zoom with COVID-19, and consequently every meeting looks like the same, just the faces and the squares change. So one of our struggles really has been how to make this meeting different in particular. And what we will be focusing on, as we have announced in the materials leading up to this meeting, are the small group, intimate discussions that capture the flavor of the personal process, friendship building, and occasion for deeper reflection that many of the more larger webinars that all of you participate in don't allow for. So we're very much hoping to be able to capture that. And that leads me then to the next thank you, which is to thank a wonderful team of moderators. We had to actually expand the team with the significant number of positive responses we got. We have a great team, and I don't know that I can see all of them on the screen, but we have just the people that I can see now. Sally, who's been a long time member. Piotr, who was with us back in Spain and on other occasions. Vanessa Sasson, who I haven't seen logging in, but hopefully she'll be here as well, who was with us last in Salt Lake City. Kurt, who hasn't been with us back, but he's with us. A new acquisition, Heather Smith, who we've picked up recently through other Elijah activities. Am I forgetting anyone, Pita? Because I don't have an order. I hope Therese will be facilitating during the one day when Piotr is not able to help with that. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Pita, who's been absolutely essential, and thank you to our moderators. I want to also thank Elizabeth, who's gone beyond the call of duty in holding everything together in the background, and to thank Matteo as well, who's also helping. And so we have two support staff, and hopefully it'll be a meaningful moment for all of us as we come together. I would like to begin with acknowledging the fact we have several things today. Our program calls for a commemoration of some friends who have left since the last time, but I think we should begin with prayers. So I'm going to begin totally randomly. I'm going to begin with a new friend, Dr. Chinmay Pandya from the Gayatri Parivar, wonderful, huge India-wide institution headquartered in Haridwar, to begin with offering some prayers.
Thank you, Alon. Pranams from on the way to Haridwar. And the prayer that I would like to offer on this very special occasion, because today is also the Guru Nanak Dev's Jayanti, Kartik Purnima, also the day of Deepavali. So very special occasion for us. And the prayer is called Gayatri Mantra, followed by Swasti Vachana. Gayatri Mantra is a prayer that comes in the Rig Veda. It is one of the most sacred mantras of the Vedic tradition. And the mantra literally is saying, asking for purification, asking for embellishment, asking for wisdom, and asking for a righteous path to follow. So my mantra followed with Swasti Vachana. And Swasti Vachana means asking for good things to happen, asking for health, happiness, harmony, prosperity, friendship, compassion, everything good to happen for everyone. So I would do the Gayatri Mantra, and if I could ask everyone to close their eyes and pray for divine consciousness to guide them to the right path. Gayatri Mantra followed by Swasti Vachana. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha Bhargo devasya dhimahi Dheyo yo naha prachodaya. Hare Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gvam Avamahe Priyanam Tva Priyapati Gvam Avamahe Nidhinam Tva Nidhipati Gvam Avamahe Vaso Mama Aham Jani Garvadama Tvam Jasi Garvadhamma Om Swasti Na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तारक्षो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ पयः पृथिव्यां पय औषधेषु पयो दिव्यन्तरिक्षे पयोधाः पयस्वतिः प्रदिशः सन्तु मह्यम् Om Vishnorarattamasti Vishnoho Vishnaptresto Vishnosyurasi Vishno Dhruvovasi Vaishnavamasi Vishnavetva Om Agnira Devata Vato Devata Suryo Devata Chandrama Devata Vasavo Devata Rudra Devata Aditya Devata Maruto Devata, Vishwe Deva Devata, Brihaspatira Devatendro Devata, Varuno Devata, Om Dev Shantirantarikshagvam Shanti Prithave Shantirapaha Shantiroshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shantir Vishvedevah Shantir Brahma Shantehe Sarvagvam Shantehe Shantireva Shantehe Sama Shantirede Om Shantehe 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 Sarvarishta Sushantir Bhavatu.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to correct an omission I just made in my thank yous. I forgot to thank the steering committee, who's been very helpful in formulating the parameters for our meeting. So thank you to all members of the steering committee. And from the steering committee, I'd like to ask Nikitas, whom, as we know, has received now a new positioning and has been super, super busy with his being the head of the Orthodox Church in England, and he's back with us, and we're very grateful for that, to offer a Christian prayer.
Thank you very much, Alam. Mine will be sort of a reflection and an ending from the book of Psalms, if that's possible. But you have to accept what I'm offering. And it is taken from a book called God and the Pandemic, written by an Anglican, Tom Wright, an academic and a clergyman. It isn't for me to tell church leaders, let alone leaders of other faith communities, how they ought to be planning for the coming months, what they might be pressing upon our governments. Yet those of us who watch and wait and pray for our leaders in church and in state must use this time of lament as a time of prayer and hope. What we hope for includes wise human leadership and initiative which will, like that of Joseph in Egypt, bring about fresh and healing policies and actions across God's wide and wonderful world. And now, from the book of Psalms. O send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling. Then I will go to the altar of God, to God my exceeding joy, and I will praise you with the harp, O God my God. Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disgusted within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him and my help and my God. And closing, to remember again the book of Psalms and the one line translated in many ways is that God has turned my mourning into dancing or rejoicing. And may he take away the pain, the sorrow, the mourning of the world, so that we all rejoice in harmony and unity of love. Amen.
So this brings me to our next prayer offering, and it's a very, very special moment for us because we have Bhikkhuni Kusuma with us, who hasn't been with us for quite some time due to the fact that, unlike most people who get older, she gets younger, but now she's gotten so young that it's hard for her to travel. I think at the tender age of 92, we're extremely grateful to Bhikkhuni for having made the journey, especially from where she resides to Colombo, just so she can be with us. A pioneer in the institution of female Buddhist monasticism. She's been a pioneer in many ways, and it's a great honor for us to ask her to offer a prayer to set us off on the way.
It's lovely night time here. I love to see all of you. It is such a blessing for me to see all of you. And I will be blessing the Metta Bhavana, that is, I give loving kindness to the entire world of living beings. So, may I say it in Pali and then translate it for you. Uddang adocha tiriyancha asambadang avelang asapatang sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta uddang adocha tiriyancha asambadang avelang asapatang sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta uddang adocha tiriyancha asambadang avelang asapatang sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May I translate it for you? May all living beings be well and happy. May they be free from pain and suffering. May they be free from anger and hatred. May they be free from enmity. May all living beings be well and happy. May all living beings be well and happy. This is the Metta Bhavana, which is very short. It is a Bhavana that we make morning, noon, and night, anytime, any posture, and it is the preoccupation of the mind.
Thank you, Bhikkhuni. We're very grateful to you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask next Brother Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf to share with us a Muslim prayer to move us into our process. Faisal?
Thank you. In the name of the one God, the creator of the universe, Allah, the God of Adam, the God of Noah, the God of Abraham, the God of Ishmael and Isaac, the God of Moses and Aaron, the God of Mary and Jesus Christ, the God of Muhammad, and the God of all the prophets named and unnamed, upon whom be peace. We pray that this meeting of the Elijah Institute bring us together, and where we find the common values and the common platform consisting of the common values of all our faith traditions. May we be blessed, O Allah. May you guide us in these 3 days of deliberations. to enable us to be instruments of your will, to enhance peace in this world, and to enhance better relationships among the inhabitants of all the faith traditions. O Lord, may you bless us and guide us in this objective. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Rabbi Michael Shudrick, Chief Rabbi of Poland, has had a change of plan, so he can't do the job we had originally assigned him. So I'm surprising him now, unexpected, but this is part of the job of rabbis, to be surprised and do things impromptu. Michael, a prayer.
A prayer, okay. After the beautiful words of the Imam, I think the best thing I could pray is just say, Amen, Amen. That this is one should not try to improve upon that which is already, quite perfect. But it's maybe perhaps more than a prayer than a reflection that we just read this past Shabbat. The fragment of the Parshat Vayetze, and towards the end we have this fascinating episode where Yaakov comes face to face with his father-in-law Lavan, which clearly they don't have a good relationship, but still they have to find a way to have a relationship with each other, because they're going to be part of each other's lives. And then you have this, they make a matzeva, kind of a monument or a pillar, and Yaakov calls it Gal-Eid and Lavan calls it Yigar Sahaduta, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the only time in the 5 books of Moses in the Torah that we have something that's not in Hebrew. That it is so important to reach out to the other that the Torah is going to let us use non-Hebrew in the Holy Torah. The only time is because it teaches us to reach out to the other. Yigar Sahaduta, Gal-Ed, which is, and that symbolizes for me how important it is with any religious tradition to reach out to the other. And as a final reflection, really something that I learned very strongly, both from my father, Zichrono Livracha, and from Pope John Paul II. Also Zichrono Livracha, that the more open you are to other religious traditions, the more it strengthens your own faith in your own tradition. That sometimes people could think that if I'm open to another religion, it's going to weaken my faith. And what I've understood both from my father, Zichrono Livracha, and John Paul II, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory, is that the more open you are to other faiths, the deeper then you become, more attached you become to your own faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I hope you're well. I hope your back is allowing you to sit through these sessions. I know it's a challenge and a sacrifice.
Doing my best.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to turn now to a bridge, really, between the prayer part and the memorial part. Chinmay said earlier that today is Guru Nanak festival. Guru Nanak is really a model for interreligious relations in the fact that in his own person and consequently in the religion that he founded or that came forth from him, he may have not intended to found a religion, there is an inbuilt interreligious dimension. So I'd like to turn in 2 ways to our close friend Bhai Sabji Mohinder Singh. First of all, a very, very brief prayer, as brief as possible. And then from there, I'd like to move on to the eulogy part and to ask you to say a few words. We're asking members of the group to share in under 2 minutes a memory of one of the board members who has passed away since our last meeting. We are a community, we are a family of sorts, and we therefore remember with great affection those who have passed on. So we thought it would be time to go through the various people whom we have missed since the last meeting and reflect on them. And as Mohinder Singh has had an association with Chief Rabbi Bhaktisiddhanta, I thought. So on to you, and in the deep respect and appreciation of Guru Nanak.
Thank you very much indeed. I will start by quoting the opening sentence of Guru Nanak Dev Ji in our revered scripture. It is, Ik Onkar Satnam Karta Purkh Nirpao Nirvair Akal Murat Ajuni Sebhang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach. Guru Nanak Ji's 551, that's the anniversary today, 551st anniversary. And in this he's advising, this is the opening sentence of our revered scripture, Guru Granth Sahib Ji. He advises us and recommends that we ever trust this to be true, that there is only one God for all. His name is truth. He is the creator and doer of everything. He is without malice. He is without fear. He is eternal. He is not born, nor does he die. And so, remember who was there before time. He was there during the ages. He is present now, and he will be present ever after. That was the prayer. Thank you. Now, message on Rabbi Bakshi Doran. It was a true honor and a privilege to meet the chief rabbi, Bakshi Doran, in Israel some years ago when dear friend Alon facilitated an exchange of ideas between the two of us. In this dialogue, there was much that the chief rabbi said that resonated deeply with me. There were many principles that we agreed upon, such as the need for religious leaders to show unlimited mercy and compassion to others, without exception or limitation, acting as positive role models. The chief rabbi talked about the fact that personal will and egoism are the greatest challenges we face today in finding peace. He talked about peace being not just an absence of war, but that it is required finding a way to perfection. Just as God has created a perfect world, it is our obligation to maintain that perfection. The chief rabbi served his family, his community, and society at large with much love and wisdom. His passing is a great loss to all who knew him. Only prayer can assuage the pain of parting of a dear one. It is comforting to remember that death is a defining part of our lives, an ultimate truth. We are all in transit, so death is a comma, not a full stop. Prayer is a healing tool, a channel for grace and instrument of joy, peace, humility, knowledge, and most importantly, gratitude. May his soul rest in peace with God Almighty forever and ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Baisabji. I'm very grateful for that. So I'm going to ask, we do want to remember Dadi Janki, and therefore we're going to cast instant lots between Sisters Moreno Jayanti. Who's going to say 2 words of remembrance for a sister, for Dadi Janki?
You do that?
I say something?
Oh, you know what? No, that's great. That's great. Avram, if you can do that, it's even better because we want someone from another tradition. Wonderful. Avram, that's it. Providence has found your spot. Great.
Daddy Janki, I met her all those years ago when she was already in her 80s. And she meditated with me with closed eyes. And I felt a kinship, a wisdom that then, when we really met over the years, became stronger and stronger. There was one moment when I was on the mountain, on this sacred mountain, and it was Friday night. And Daddy Janki invited me to sing the songs of Shabbat, when angels surround us with messages from the Holy Blessed be He. And I felt at home. She provided in her eyes, the eyes in which there was an eternal light, the wisdom of this new religious spiritual movement carried by women. And she was such a strength, an inner strength. Even in Coronospection, it was mentioned that every time that we were together in Oxford also, there was this moment of silence. Whatever we were speaking or whatever was done, suddenly there was this silence. And it was like not any interruption, it was a transformation. And I'm thankful for having known her. She reached a very high, over 100 years, still traveling, frail, but in a shining light. And it was in her place, in Oxford, that we so fittingly had this meeting of friendship across religions. And it was her spirit. It was what she has created, which helped us to move to real friendship. I will always think of her as the one who blessed friendship across religions in the deepest sense. May she be gathered amongst the mothers and the women and the men who carry the world for us. Amen.
Beautiful, inspiring, all the way from the mountaintop. Thank you, Avram. I'm very grateful to Swamiji for not being here so we could hear your particular perspective on things. Yeah, all right. Adamundam Najoya was with us from the first meeting back in Seville in 2003. I remember with so much affection how he used to summarize the contents of every meeting in a poem and bring all the insights together poetically. I'd like to ask David Rosen to offer some words in memory of Adamu.
Thank you, Alon. For those of you who didn't know Adamu, just let me summarize a couple of very brief points. He was both a religious leader, a civic leader, a political leader, a lawyer, a professor, an author, a poet, an interfaith activist, and a great champion, courageous champion of human rights. It was really a great joy, and it's appropriate for his name, to have had him as a friend for over 30 years. Going back to the early days of my involvement in Religions for Peace, of which he was also a president, and at one time the moderator of this, which is, I think, the largest world interfaith body. He occupied important political positions in his country, in the Cameroons, both as Minister of Education from 1972 to 1980, and previous to that as Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. But he was simply too principled a man for the political world. And he fought corruption, which made him
disliked intensely by people in political power. He ran for the presidency 5 times and was, of course, never succeeded in getting it, but it seemed that a lot of the failure was due to the system, which he was such a severe critic of. He was the mayor of his town and indeed came from Francophone part of Cameroon, from a family of great pedigree. And this, in a way, was part of what was so special about him, because he had both a nobility and an authority without any pomposity and without any patronization. There was nothing aloof from him, but there was a quality of what one might call natural aristocracy that one felt in his presence, together with humor, with great warmth, and deeply rooted within his own Muslim tradition. He was in fact one time president of the African Muslim Congress, and very prominent in terms of Islamic associations in his own country, deeply rooted with his own tradition, and wrote extensively on terms of on Islamic teaching. And yet he was truly a universalist. This is a very rare quality, which I think in some ways typifies what both Elijah is about and what many of us aspire for, to be deeply rooted within their own authentic tradition and to be truly universal in their outreach. He was indeed a great blessing to all of us who were privileged to call him a friend, and his memory remains with us as a blessing.
David, I'm deeply moved by that, and also by how profoundly you've connected Adamu to Elijah's very mission and very being. Thank you. Our last memorial is Patriarch Masrab. Not many people here remember Patriarch Masrab. He spent almost the last 15 years comatose. I've therefore asked, we will deviate and ask his successor, Patriarch Masrab, to offer a few words of appreciation for him. Patriarch Masrab?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Patriarch Masrab became my teacher. I became his disciple. He was not older than me, only 6 years, but he was always a mature person and a clergy. He left good traces on the people who remember him. Patriarch Masrab was an impressive clergyman in every respect, learned, physically imposing, resolute in his faith, and courageous in his action. He was extremely personable, approachable, and open to developments of the modern world. For example, in the earliest days of the internet, for example, the Patriarch was the first Armenian church leader to employ email and online chats as a means of communications. Today it can come to us laughable, but he was a leader in this sense also. Unfortunately, poetically saying, his song was cut abruptly. In his early 50s, he got a merciless illness, so-called frontotemporal dementia, a sort of Alzheimer illness. And he lost his memory. As you said, he was on comatose state nearly 11 years. He is important because he was a prominent figure in ecumenic and interfaith dialogues. Although his death happened really in 2019, but already he departed from us 2008 with his illness. Therefore, many people may not remember him, but God remembers. So I have a prayer for him. It is a modified our church prayer. I will say for all these deceased friends and Patriarch Masrab. O Lord, have compassion upon the souls of our departed ones, whom you created with bountiful mercy. Therefore, mercifully remember them, when at the marvelous sound of the trumpet, the dead shall rise and stand before your wondrous tribunal. Gracious God, maker of all beings out of nothing, grant forgiveness to your departed servants, when you shall judge all those who you created with your immaculate hands of light. Remember also, O Lord, your good servant, the late Armenian Patriarch Masrab Archbishop Mutafian, on the great day of your judgment, make him worthy of your mercy, expiation, and forgiveness of sins. Number him and glorify him among your saints, who will be assembled at your right hand. For you are Lord and Creator of all beings, and Judge of the living and the dead, and you are due glory, power, and honor now and ever, and to unending times. Amen. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we're going to now ask for the final, last but not least, well, last one to pass away, Rabbi Sachs. I hope Mustafa's microphone is working. Is it? Take one. Take
Maybe
two.
He's speaking alone.
He's speaking, but we don't hear him.
Maybe because he has to go to take out the ear and speak in the computer. Sometimes it is the case for me.
Mustafa, try what Teresa is suggesting. Unplug your headset.
And speak to the.
Unplug it from your computer.
Unplug it from your computer, not just from your ears.
Ja.
Nog een beetje.
Mustafa?
En nog een keer thee.
Maybe if he logs in again, like.
No, we'll find. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. David Ford, I'm putting you on the spot. Mustafa, it's not working. We don't hear you. Sorry. I'm sorry. Something is not working with your computer, my friend. I really am sorry about that. David Ford, are you there? No, you need to unmute yourself. You're muted, David.
Sorry, there I am, yes.
Can you give us 2 minutes impression, Rabbi, on Rabbi Sachs, with apologies to Mustafa Serich, whom we simply cannot hear?
Oh my goodness me, this is a complete surprise.
It is.
but he was somebody. Well, I remember sitting in his. Well, his office was in his home here in London, and I remember my meeting with him there, and how the sense in his presence of things being weighed, that you just felt that there was a wisdom there, that you had complete attention, but also a sense of drawing on all sorts of depths in order to respond to whatever was being said. And I suppose and many meetings in various settings, but I also happened to be in the group that was deciding on the shortlist for the Templeton Prize, which he received. And that was just fascinating. I won't break any confidences in saying what all the various references for him said, but cumulatively, there was this sense that here we had a quite extraordinarily significant person who managed to be, as has just been said, deeply in his own tradition, and also have a universal reference to draw in people. And I would just say too that his exegesis of scripture, the way in which he managed to draw one into scripture in quite remarkable ways, managing to combine both deep tradition and deep originality. It was quite extraordinary. And I think his renewal of people's engagement with the stories of the Pentateuch, in Genesis in particular, I think, of the siblings and so forth, and his conception of why we cannot have war in God's name, and giving us the deepest possible rationale for that. That's I think his message to our world and for the sort of horizon within which Elijah is. Oh, sorry, I wish I'd been prepared for this, because
Fine,
I had all sorts of other thoughts, but it is wonderful to be able to pay tribute to him.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all. Mustafa, we will find some other moment in order to make it up to you and to find the words you prepared. And I apologize for these difficulties. This is the beauty is that we can meet, and the hardship is that we have these challenges of technology. I'd like to move now with all these. I will say one thing. I'm not sure there's another group in the world that can offer the kind of remembrance process that we've just been through. The combination of looking at people with such diversity to show appreciation across religions, to find a language that's both humanly authentic, spiritually engaged, drawing from their religious sources. It's quite spectacular to look at the fact how we've been able to join.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I had to take off and then come back again. Okay.
Yeah. Every spaceship says that. Okay, tell us.
Can I say something? Yes. First of all, shalom and salam from Sarajevo. Nice to see you and hear you. I am very honored to speak about the Honorable Lord Sachs before I say about Rabbi Sachs. First of all, I met His Eminence in 2009 at Davos Economic Forum. And we had a joint picture about that. So I don't know whether Rabbi Sachs did learn something from me, but I can say that I did learn from him three things. First of all, if you are strong in your religion, in your faith, you have no fear to have dialogue with others, and then you remain as you are, but you extend your hand and your heart to others. The second thing that I learned from him is his reconciliation of the universalities with the particularities in each one of us. We have sometimes the dilemma how to keep your particular faith in a universal world. I think that Rabbi Sachs knew how to do it. And the third thing that I think is very important to know, his role, not in a particular political party, but he was engaged in society and in the state, as he was practicing the political party cross-bench. He was cross-bencher. If anything, we as religious leaders should take from late Rabbi Sachs is this idea of mediation between or among the politicians who are now divided in almost everywhere in the world, more than any time before. So the role of being a crossbencher in the sense of making politicians closer to each other for a noble goal in the society and the state is a noble one. So my homage to Rabbi Sachs goes through these three things that I have learned from him. One is that as long as you are strong in your faith, you have no fear to meet other people who are different from you. Only those people who are not strong in their own faith, they are afraid to talk to others. The second thing is that to be a particular doesn't mean that you cannot be universal and global. You keep your particularity, but you participate, you share the universality of all the people. And finally, what is the most important today is the cultural broker, or the peace broker, or the dialogue broker, or especially in politics, even from the United States. We need the religious leader who can come and talk to each parties, to each individual and groups regarding the political situation, not to say what is happening in Europe and not to say what is happening in my own country. So we are going to miss Rabbi Sachs with his ideas, with his spirit, and with his energy, and with his willing to be engaged in society. So I pay my respect to him, and I offer my condolences to especially to the Jewish communities in England and in Europe. His book, Not in the Name of God, is very famous, and everyone should read this book. So with these words, I pray to Almighty God to enlighten us all with the idea of being constructors rather than destructors of the peace and the friendship in the world. So Rabbi Alon, to you personally, I know how much you miss Rabbi Sachs, because you look like, not all the rabbis are like look to each other. They are so different. It's very difficult to talk about them. So I think he was like you, or you are like him.
Thank you for that compliment, Mustafa.
So just keep your breath, take care of your health, take care of coronavirus, don't expose yourself, and keep this Elijah Alliance alive.
Okay.
We like you more than you like us.
I'm not sure. I think I love all the people here. I don't think that's true. Everything is true except for that last sentence.
No. But you see, I can speak on my behalf. So I like you more than you like me. I know that. So don't worry.
I think we can find you a good
I will forgive you. I will forgive you.
We will find you a good therapist when this is over, Mustafa.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you. I'm grateful to all of you, and I'm grateful now. If I was thankful before to the fact that we could have this kind of an amazing recollection for all the people, now with Mustafa's third try final success, I'm even more grateful. Which now brings us to the end of this part, and we are now ready for the core of this opening session. The core of this.
Alon,
yes.
May I bring the greetings of Dharma Master Shindao from Taiwan to the entire assembly?
Looks
He's
like you're doing
thinking
it.
of us, praying for us. He is on his personal retreat right now, so this is why he was not able to join us. but he is with us in spirit and will be extending his blessings and his prayers to all of us for the success of this meeting and for the friendship and for our vision as religious leaders, how to contribute to a better living together and taking care of this earth together.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for presenting him to us.
Thank you.
Let's move on then to the core of our panel. As we know, we have two topics under COVID-19 and religious responses to it. We have a form of religious leaders who have been, in one way or another, significantly impacted by the pandemic. It's a time for us to be together, just to hear what we've been through, not necessarily to give the wisdom to others. I had a talk with Sugunendra Tirtha Swamiji, the Swami that walks around with a pole and the quote-unquote funny sandals. So I spoke to him, no disrespect intended. I hope everybody knows who I mean. And I spoke to him, and he told me he himself had been in hospital for 2 weeks with COVID. He contacted it. And then he said to me something that I find worth quoting. He said to me, our communities look to us to give them hope, and we do our best, but we also need the hope. There was a beautiful moment in this exchange with him where he was very sincere, and he said, here we are, people are looking to us, they're expecting answers from us. We don't always have those answers. And I'm hoping that the kind of conversations that we can cultivate within our group allow us to gain strength from each other. That's really the purpose, because we're not going to come up with great declarations. We're going to come up, hopefully, with personal support, enrichment, insight, friendship. These are the goals: support, insight, enrichment, friendship. And that will happen through the small group conversations. And as you know, most of our sessions are in small group. But we wanted to launch the small group conversations with plenary and to ask 3 individuals to share their experiences from the COVID period, personally, organizationally, but above all, in what way was it transformative? As we open up to each other in a more personal sharing, in a more testimonial manner, we want voices who can speak from their own personal experience and thereby set the tone for others to also speak in a more personal way, which I believe is going to make this meeting different from many other meetings. So in this spirit, we have 3 contributions. The first is from the almost soon-to-be Archbishop Emeritus of Vienna, Cardinal Schoenberg, who's been a longtime friend and who's contributed to Elijah in many ways, but has actually never been to a meeting. All of you will have seen his amazing personal testimony as part of the Corona Inspection Project. And I'm delighted that Cardinal Schoenberg, I suppose, will open it. We're going to go, I think, from west to east. So there is nothing else intended in this sequence. Then we're going to move further east to Chief Rabbi Lazar, who at least we know has one common denominator with Sugunendra Tirtha Swami, other than, of course, their basic humanity and their spiritual aspiration, which is that he too has been sick with COVID-19 and went through it, and therefore he can also speak from his personal experiences. There are other people on the call. Rabbi Dov Singer has also had the illness. In other words, our group has also been affected by COVID. We're not, no one is free. It doesn't spare anyone. And we will hear his responses to the spiritual processes he's gone through and his community has gone through. We're going to conclude with, and I'm ever so delighted that she's back with us after many years, Chandra Rinpoche. We had a mini disaster in her finally not making it to Spain due to a problem in the office. And I'm so happy that she's with us in Dehradun and she'll be offering her perspective. And after these 3 sharings, then we're going to break up into smaller groups. So with that, I pass the virtual microphone to Cardinal Schoenberg.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Alan, for inviting me to be, I must confess, for the first time to an Elijah Alliance meeting. We have met so often with you and your wife, Therese, but it's the first time that I have the great privilege to participate to this meeting, and I'm so impressed about the witnesses, about the departed members of this remarkable group. You asked me, Alan, to speak about my experience with this pandemia. First of all, I have to say that I'm very grateful to God that I have escaped from 2 heavy disease. Last year, I had a cancer surgery which went well, and I'm fine. And then I had a very serious lung infarctus just a year ago, and I was very close to death. Some hours between the departure and the earthly life, and I'm very grateful that I have overcome both these diseases. I have asked Pope Francis that he may accept my resignment for reason of age and also my health, but he doesn't seem to be very busy in finding my successor. What impresses me most in the corona, of course, I am a risk person, and I try to be prudent, but not to be anxious, not to be afraid, because life must go on, and therefore, and we all know that life is not eternal on earth. So it's not. When I had my cancer surgery, I said in a press conference, it's a win-win situation for a believer, because whether I overcome, it's a win. When I do not overcome, it's, I would say, even a greater win. Anyhow, what impresses me most in the corona pandemia is the experience that the whole world, the entire world, our globe is affected, and nobody can escape. And of course, it is not as terrible as the pest. How do you say in English? The pest that ravaged entire countries in the Middle Age and till the 18th century. But that was always local. Now it is universal. And reflecting spiritually, theologically about what is happening, I think, first of all, the virus does not make difference between religions. That's a very good teaching for us. It is a teaching in the basic conviction I think we all share, that humanity is but one. It's one family. Pope Francis has published his last great writing with the title Fratelli Tutti. We are all brothers and sisters. And this conviction is, I think, shared by all of us, and it is the best medicine against racism and against nationalism. I remember in my patristic studies the famous famous Roman pagan philosopher Celsus, who wrote in his writing against Christians that to pretend that all humans are but one family. He said, this is the language of stasis, of revolution. This is the language of revolution. And he was strongly against this teaching because he said, you cannot pretend that a Roman citizen and a barbarian are of the same dignity. The Judeo-Christian, and I think basically the universal conviction of all religions is that we are one family, the human family, that we are therefore we are obliged to live as a family. And what I consider as a great challenge of the pandemia, the COVID pandemia, is that we are taught that nature, creation, obliges us to be and to live just as one family. I often meditate these days about the basic realities of our, you may say this is evident, but it's good to think about evidences. The fact that we breathe the same air everywhere, that there is air to live, to breathe, that this same earth nourishes us, and that we are all absolutely dependent. This is for me a very, very powerful teaching of this pandemic. We are all dependent. We are not the masters. We are, as the Bible says in the first pages, we are the shepherds, the guardians of this world. We are not the owners. A second element which impresses me is the role of science. At one hand, we are all expecting the results of this tremendous worldwide work of the scientists to find a remedy against COVID-19. But at the same time, the scientists are aware that they are not the creators. They have to discover the language of nature, the language of creation. And it invites us to a great humility, mutual humility, humility in the scientific community. Of course, there's also much money behind all these efforts of research, but basically it is a worldwide community that cannot work without a deep respect for creation, because we have not produced the virus, we have not produced nature, we are dependent. Now the third question, I don't know whether in your communities this question arises, but I have heard this question often in our cultural surrounding. Is COVID-19, is this pandemia a punishment? Is this simply a natural event, now globalized through the globalization of our modern life? It would not be global from China to all points in the world if there were not the globalization as we all live. But why does it happen? And the religious question, at least in my surrounding, from quite a good number of people, ask the question, is this God's punishment? Now we may say the pandemic has slowed down the whole world in a tremendous way, and the consequences of this slowdown will be seen only in the next years. But is it a punishment? Have we been excessive in our behavior? Have we been sinful, abusing the gifts of creation? Have we been sinful in exploring the world in an excessive way? I have no clear answer to this question. But what is, if we speak about punishment, what does it mean? It's not a vengeance. I cannot imagine that the Holy One needs vengeance against his creatures. But as the Bible always says, he wants us to remember. And I consider the pandemic as a great invitation for remembrance, rediscovering with this slowdown. I have passed nearly 3 months in the first lockdown in the bishop's house. I suffered from the lack of contacts, many contacts through video and telephone, but the physical contact. But I have also learned that I must slow down. I have been overactive over the years, and now the quality of silence, of meditation, prayer, is to rediscover. And I think with that I will stop, is which is so important for the Elijah Alliance, friendship. We need each other around this globe in a tremendous way, much more than we ever had in history. We need each other. And we look at each other as human beings with the same human nature, the same worries about health, the same joys. And therefore, I think it's not a punishment, it's a remembrance. It's an invitation to live what the Alliance tries to live for many years. And I'm so grateful, Alan, for all you and the whole Alliance has done and still does. Friendship. I think this is the remembrance that we receive through Corona.
Thank you, Cardinal. So we have here this really interesting theologizing on what the meaning of the moment is, struggling with classical notions of theodicy, punishment, the boundaries, suggestion that remembrance is it, and the twofold movement, the twofold insights, which is one is deeper unity, and we will talk about that on day 3, the message of unity that emerges and that you see as one of the messages of the moment, And the second message, which is the call for deepening, for quiet, for interiority, for slowing down. There's more than one person on this Zoom call who would resonate with that. We'll finish our day today with a meditation in that spirit. So thank you for putting those two key insights and framing the theological conversation for us. I'm hoping that we will continue to also have more personal insights. And with that, let me move to Rabbi Lazar.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, it's a great, great pleasure to see all of you again. As Rabbi Alon said, sadly, we cannot see each other, face to face, but at least we're able to see each other through the screen, through the computer, and it brings back great memories. I just see you shared this picture of the Lai group visiting at a synagogue a few years ago, which was also a memorable experience. Sadly, thinking that this is the way we used to sit together, no distancing, no masks, and let's hope that very soon we'll be able to come back together the same way. I want to thank the Cardinal for his wise words. I think that he shared all of our thoughts, because what he said is really what each one of us is thinking. Surely it's not a punishment. We don't believe God is punishing the whole world. It's really probably a test, a challenge to see how people will react. And if we'll be able to use this opportunity in the right way. And I think us as religious, we have a special responsibility to reach out to our congregants, to the people we love, and share with them really what this challenge is supposed to do in our families, in our homes, in our communities, understanding each other, listening, sharing quiet times, as you very gracefully said. It's really very often we forget how important our family is, and when we have no choice in being together with them, we actually understand the importance. We have seen in our communities many families who have come much closer together because of this pandemic, and sadly many families have fallen apart because they weren't ready for the challenge. But I think in general, people today are ready to hear, are more aware that there's a message out there, there's something that they have to think about, learn, and realize that the world is not the same as it used to be, but at the same time a recognition that there is somebody in the driver's seat. You mentioned the shepherd. I think it's what King David says, God is our shepherd. And really that is I think, an important message. We are just, we thought we knew where we're going. There's somebody that is really leading us, showing us the way. We have to trust in him. And I think one of the strongest messages that this coronavirus has given people is really the power and the strength of trusting in God. As Rabbi Alon mentioned, I was also one of those lucky enough to end up in the hospital because of the coronavirus. And I spoke to doctors, and they told me that when they see a patient coming into the hospital, they could tell right away in how long is he going to leave the hospital, or sadly, if he's going to have a long stay, or even worse. And all depends on his inner strength and in his positivity, his optimism, his trust in something much stronger than just us doctors. You spoke about science. Actually, we realized the limitations of science. We thought up to a year ago that doctors have all the solutions. You don't feel good, you could just go to the doctor and magic, he can take care of you. Today we realize how limited science is. They don't have all the answers. And a lot depends on the trust that a person has, and how, again, the support around you, the community, your family is going to give you a lot of strength. So there are a lot of messages, and I'm sure each one of us can go on and on how much we have learned of these important values of religion, how important they are in such a difficult time. But I want to share with you one personal experience. I actually haven't spoken about it. I mentioned it once. And I think this is a group that maybe will really appreciate my personal experience in this particular case. When I was laying in the hospital, a few hours that was really terrible, atrocious. I really felt something very strange going on inside of me. Sort of, if I would explain it in words, I would say that my soul sort of was somewhere and the body was somewhere else. And no part of the body really felt that it was connected to something real. And I was thinking, like, what is going on? And the pain was terrible. And of course, medications weren't helping. And I was, at a certain point, I was really getting sort of desperate. And I remembered a story that happened with the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Hasidism, that he once visited a community and he knew that people there had a lot of questions. Before even coming there, they told him, beware that the whole community is gathering, but they have a lot of questions that they want to ask you, tough questions. And this is going to be a very tough meeting. So be ready. He walked into the synagogue. He got up on the podium and he said that before I start hearing your questions and trying to answer them, I would like everybody to join me in singing a song. And he started singing a song and everybody joined him. And after the song was over, when they finished singing it, everybody together, he turned to them and he said, okay, now I'm ready to hear and listen to your questions. And everybody was quiet. There were no more questions. And people were shocked, what happened here? But they realized they have no more questions. The song that they sang together sort of answered all their questions. So the Rebbe said, okay, if that's the case, I'm going to leave. And he left. One young man realized that something happened here very strange. He knows himself how many questions he had. Other people had questions. So what happened here? And he ran after the Rebbe and he caught up to him and he says, can you tell me what happened? What was this magic? Was this, how did this happen? He said, no, it's very simple. I brought you to the realm of song. When you are in that world, there are no questions. Things look different when you are united through music, when you're united through something that unites us. You had questions, we have differences, as many speakers today said, and these differences are important, but there's a level where we can reach where there are no differences, there are no questions, there are no problems. And I decided that this is a moment where everything that I had learned and taught, let's see if I can actually internalize it. And I started singing. And the person who was with me in the room thought that I went crazy, hallucinating probably, but I started singing and I sang for practically 2 hours, nonstop. And it brought me to a different place. I was somewhere else. The pain was gone. The suffering was gone. The questions were gone. I really felt that I was in a different place. I was in a different world. And this taught me an incredible lesson that very often, we all have a body and a soul. We know that, we teach that, we think that, we understand that, we believe that. Can we really tap into our soul? Can we really touch this part of us where there are no differences, where we're all together, where there are no questions? When these challenges are really a way to go deep into our soul and dig and try to realize what is really going on inside of me. Many of you call it meditations, but I think music is really what unites us all. It's really what, there's 7 notes in all languages, and it's beautiful when you hear different people singing together, whether it's an orchestra or a choir, and you realize that this is actually the beauty when we are different, but we're all together. So I think this is really what had taught me, this experience had taught me a lot about differences and And as the Cardinal just said, we're all brothers, we're all one family. And we have to just wake up and realize that this is really the real reality. The reality that we see out there, very often, whether you open up the news or you see what's going on in the world, is sadly shocking. And there's something so special when we can come together. And this evening is really something that has brought, I think, a lot of optimism to myself, I'm sure to all of us, to understand, look how beautiful it is when we are together. As we say in Hebrew, Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. It's so beautiful. It's such a pleasure. It's so uplifting when we are all together. I just want to share with you one small anecdote, which I think it's funny, but it's actually, I mentioned it in the synagogue once, and people were actually very touched. So I think it's something that maybe many of you can share with your congregants. When I was leaving the hospital, of course, they told me go to the desk and you have to pay your bill. And I go up to the front desk and they gave me the bill. In Russia, it's in rubles. So it was actually 1 million rubles. It's, don't get worried. It's like, let's say $15,000. And I was a little, taken aback. And I went and I said, I told the person there, I said, wow, 1 million rubles? So she realized that I was a little shocked. She said, listen, if needed, we can talk to the head doctor. Maybe we can get you a discount. I said, no, it's not about the money. I'll get it back from the insurance. I'm sure they'll pay. I'm just thinking, imagine 1 week of breathing. It's 1 million rubles. The Cardinal said so beautifully that we all share the same air and we all breathe the same air, and air is actually a beautiful present that we receive from God on a daily basis and every moment of our life, but we don't appreciate it. Getting air for a week, it's $15,000. Think how much we owe God for our day-to-day life. And it's an awakening call. I think this coronavirus has brought some new understanding to all of us. And it's beautiful that we can have this meeting, even in such times. I'm looking forward to hopefully shaking everybody's hands and hugging and seeing each other face to face. But in the meantime, I think this lesson continues, and let's hope that very soon, by learning this lesson and spreading this really lesson of faith and of trust in God, we're going to be past this test and we're going to be able to celebrate together. Thank you, Rabbi Alon, for the opportunity to share my experience, and I'm looking forward for the next 2 days of a lot of support and rejuvenation.
Thank you, Rabbi Lazar. Everyone knows to call me by a first name and not by titles, so I just want to make certain that nobody takes a bad example here. I have three quick responses. In the Corona Inspection interview, Bishop Domenico, who's with us here right now on the Zoom, I asked him, if St. Francis were here, what would he want us to do now during this Corona? And his answer was to sing. He was specific about a particular song, the Canticle of St. Francis, but he said to sing. So I just love the fact that you've brought this particular notion of singing. Second point I want to say in response to what you said is that I have failed to take note of the fact that not only have people who are contributing to this conversation been sick, but there are some of us of our community who aren't present. In the room, you'll see right now, one person is lying on his back because he's having terrible backache, but Elder Jeff Holland, who was supposed to be the speaker, I think he's in hospital. They're not announcing it, but he was canceled. All his activities have been canceled. So he's not, the change was for medical reasons. And Muhammad Suhail Omar, his wife wrote today that he's delirious with high fever, and I'm concerned that Suhail has COVID as well. So it's a good moment just to pause for a second and to think and to remember some of our friends and to send healing energy to to those who are sick in our community, beyond in the entire world. So we're not only giving gratitude, but we're also sending out collectively prayers for healing. And luckily for you, I forgot the third comment I want to make, and that will therefore lead me to ask Chandra Rinpoche to share with us. Chandra, I saw you had a beautiful smile on your face as you were listening to Rabbi Lazar. So we carry that smile collectively onto the next, onto your contribution.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Alon. And let me begin by really thanking you very much. And it's a great honor and delight to be with everyone here. It's just such an honor. I could have listened to Cardinal Schoenberg and Chief Rabbi Lazar for days, and it's just such a nectar of wisdom that really, I think, gives us all the greatest hope and the courage. I have been asked, and I really don't know why Rabbi Alon asks me to say something, because I really feel that there's so much for me to learn at this point, that and listening especially to the wisdom words, I really realize how I should be more quiet and listen more at this time. Nevertheless, to say something about how we have been living through the COVID experiences, needless to say, it has been a very difficult time for people around the world. But besides the sickness and the loss of life, different challenges of the many different kinds that everyone is familiar with, I think there has been some more minor challenges that we have all encountered. And I thought that perhaps that's something that we could speak about in the coming days. Now, our community here in India, where our monastery is, comprises of a few hundreds of monks. And the extended community of people who live together. And
Elizabeth, can you mute everyone except for Chandra Rinpoche? Someone's mic is on and disturbing. Just mute everyone except for.
So as I was saying, the community here with a couple of, I think about 400 monks and nuns, and over 2,000 refugees, Tibetan refugees. Our community here comprises of a very close-knit community. So the experience during the pandemic, of course, being similar to everyone else around the world, has been relatively less difficult, I would say, for our own community, because when the pandemic began, the lockdown that we were placed under in early March is still continuing. So we've been basically under strict lockdown for the last 8 months. And for a monk or a nun living in the monastery, as well as for the local community, because this is a close-knit community, living under lockdown has been actually quite efficient. There have been many volunteers who've given up everything to create a very safe and a protected place. And of course, there has been a lot of activities with sharing food and giving medical aid and taking care of all the people. But in terms of the challenges of the disease, the COVID-19 itself, we have been very, very lucky that we have not reached, in a community of almost now 3,000 people, we've had only 2 cases of infection, and that in the last 8 months. And these were 2 people who came from outside. So therefore, there isn't kind of a big direct experience. Of course, the global experience, I don't need to mention. But the direct experience of the disease itself has not been something that I have personally encountered, nor have I seen with people close to me. However, there is, I think, beyond all the loss of life and the diseases and people being sick, as well as the lack of food and lack of real aid that everybody has been experiencing, one of the challenges that slowly I have begun to encounter happened around, I think, after the first 2 or 3 months of the lockdown. Well, I think after the initial excitement of the pandemic, and I use the word excitement because in the beginning, people as well as the government and every one of us, we were talking so much. We were counting the numbers of infection. There were so many things happening. People were clapping hands or ringing bells or lighting lamps, and there was some kind of an subtler, indirect excitement in people about being, confronting the pandemic and being under lockdown. But closer to, I think, about 3 months into the pandemic, we began to notice something that was very, very significant, and which I am very much hoping that we will be able to discuss in the coming days. And that is to beginning to see how the world today, and all of us who are living in the world today, have gotten so used to external stimuli, how our today's generation has become so dependent upon the acquisition of external materials for what one assumes is going to be the basis of one's happiness and security. So then this issue, the significant issue, came to the forefront when we began to encounter a dramatic increase in mental health and depression. This is really, if there are all the people who are infected with the diseases, who have suffered so much, who have gone through the direct experience of loss of loved ones and so forth. But beyond that, this subtler form of challenge, I thought, was very, very significant, especially for people who were not directly involved with the disease itself. And so we began to find people dealing with many different kinds of mental health issues, especially with depression. And I don't think that these mental issues are necessarily due to the pandemic, but definitely the pandemic increased it when we were all forced to be alone, to be without access to the external movements and limited from the habit of being addicted to the outer stimuli. So people began to experience very strong challenges of fear, challenges of insecurity, challenges of loneliness, immense sadness, being unable to really have this human touch and connection with one another. And I think basically the loss of freedom that we have all been taking for granted. So therefore, when this increase in the depression and the loneliness and the mental health issues began to be more and more increased, then many of the people turned to the spiritual leaders. And this is, I think, a very important discussion, which I would really like to listen and learn during the course of the meetings of the Elijahs here, is where spiritual leaders have this immense responsibility of being really the reference of courage and reference of sanity and reference of hope. There's not only the pandemic, but then there is just troubled times that we live in, where there's so many different issues. And when the pandemic and the situations that we find ourselves in bring to the forefront the uncertainty and the fear, and it overwhelms one's mind, who do the people turn to? They usually turn to the spiritual practitioners, the religious leaders. And therefore, I think what happens is we as teachers or we as religious leaders begin to really need to understand how to respond to this and how better to even, more importantly, respond correctly, and to be able to really see what it is that can give people hope, that can give people courage, and that can give people some sense of refuge. And so I was very struck by Cardinal Schoenberg's question about punishment. Now, from a Buddhist perspective, we usually talk about interdependence, the codependency of all of us, the shared experiences. And I think during the pandemic, what has been very, very clear to all of us is that we are not going to survive with an individualistic attitude. But it is very important for us all to understand the interdependent relationship that we all have, that what I say, what I do, how I think, and how I create has an impact on the lives of the others just as much as what everybody else does has an impact to my life as well. So in this situation, I think there is so much for us to learn and to understand. And in that learning and understanding, how best can we actually give that sense of refuge and sense of support and sense of sanity and hope to all the people who do, in situations such as what we have experienced in 2020, do turn to religious leaders, do turn to their own temples and churches and synagogues. And therefore, it becomes, I think, so wonderful, such a meeting as this that allows us all to share our own experiences, learn, and especially for someone like me to learn, and how that learning and sharing can actually become a beacon of hope for all the other people who are not only going through these tremendous challenges of death and dying, but even while they are healthy and alive, their mind is in turmoil. Their mind, mentally, there's so much sadness, there's so much loneliness, there's so much a sense of really needing to find refuge. And so in Buddhist teachings, we have, within the context of training the mind, a slogan that I have always tried to keep in mind and do the best I can to practice. And the slogan says, transform adversities into your best friend. It would be very wonderful, I think, as we go into the panel discussions, to see how can we all gather together to truly transform this challenge of the pandemic or any other challenges to the body and to the mind, to the world and the sentient beings. How can we transform these adversities to becoming our best friend? So I leave it with that question, with the hope that we can take that into the panel discussions.
So thank you so much, Rinpoche, for really framing what this meeting is all about. Learning, sharing, receiving from the other, and emerging with hope. This is exactly the logic of this meeting, and I believe that this is what makes this meeting different from other meetings because of the opportunity to share, to learn, and this quest for hope, which is really, if you look at the program, our entire introductory speeches have given us three very important dimensions. Raised, the personal experience and the spiritual survival strategies. Spiritual guides, spiritual directors that Rinpoche mentioned. I think these are three fundamental things that we want to keep in mind. This has been very rich, so many different aspects between the prayers and the eulogies and the insights. Ideally, we should sing now, but we leave that for another time. I think I hand over the microphone now to Pita in order to 1 or 2 practical instructions, and then we do this magic. In a moment, we're going to find ourselves in small groups, just like that, and then we can really continue the conversation. Pita, on to you.
Okay, lovely. It's so rich already. It's not just like that, though. In one moment, Elizabeth is going to actually